The Proxima Station's central hub buzzed with the electric tension of 1,000 different species, each one a living testament to the galaxy's infinite diversity. Jack Rodriguez stood near a transparent viewport, his reflection a study in contrast against the starlit backdrop. At 42, he carried the weathered look of a man who had seen too much and found peace in too little. The faded Marine Corps tattoo on his forearm peeked out from beneath a worn compression shirt, a silent reminder of days when his body was a weapon, not just a memory. 3 months had passed since his divorce from Elena. 3 months since he lost not just his wife, but his purpose. The fitness center he built from nothing now felt like a mausoleum of broken dreams, filled with equipment that seemed to mock his current state of professional and personal limbo. He'd spent years helping veterans rebuild their bodies, teaching them that physical limitation was mostly a lie we told ourselves. Now, he needed that lesson more than ever. A sudden hush fell over the massive circular hub. The holographic displays flickered to life, casting an ethereal blue glow across the faces of hundreds of alien species. Commander Crix of the Xeraxian delegation materialized, a being that defied human understanding of biology. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, Crix's body was a living lattice of silicon-based muscles that shifted and realigned with each movement, like liquid crystal given sentience. Inhabitants of the Galactic Confederation, Crix's voice resonated through universal translators, each word a precision-engineered weapon of condescension. We issue a challenge that will demonstrate the absolute pinnacle of evolutionary design. Jack's fingers traced the edge of the viewport, feeling the microscopic vibrations of the station's protective shielding. Something in Crix's tone made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The Xeraxian continued, mandibles clicking with what could only be described as anticipation. We challenge any species to compete in the Galactic Fitness Trials, a comprehensive test of physical capability that will prove, once and for all, the superior biological design of the Xeraxian species. Betting pools across 1,000 worlds lit up instantaneously. Holographic odds began to cascade around the hub. 1,000 to 1 against any human competitor. 10,000 to 1 for survival, let alone victory. Jack knew the reputation of the Xeraxians. They were legendary, a species that had evolved in the crushing gravity of a super-dense planet, with a physiology that could reconfigure itself at a molecular level. They could survive in vacuum, reconstruct damaged tissue in moments, and possessed strength that made human weightlifters look like children playing with toys. But Jack had seen impossible before. He thought of the veterans he trained. Jimmy Parker, who'd lost both legs in a Mars colony incident and learned to walk, then run, with prosthetics Jack had helped design. Sarah Chen, who rebuilt her body after a catastrophic industrial accident, becoming stronger than she'd ever been before the incident. Each of them had laughed in the face of impossible. Commander Crix wasn't finished. No species has ever completed more than 2 stages of our trials. The challenges are designed to test not just strength, but adaptive capability across multiple gravitational and environmental spectrums. A holographic display showed previous competitions. Alien species Jack had never heard of, some looking like living crystals, others like sentient gas clouds, all broken and defeated. Their bodies twisted, shattered, or simply gave up under the extreme conditions. The challenge wasn't just a test. It was a declaration of species superiority. We invite any representative, Crix's voice dripped with contempt, to demonstrate their species' physical potential. The trials begin in 30 solar cycles. Registration is open to all confederated species. Something inside Jack Rodriguez shifted. It wasn't pride. It wasn't anger. It was something deeper, a fundamental human refusal to accept limitation. His prosthetic client database forgotten. His divorce papers collecting dust. The fitness center with its silent machines. All of it fell away. Jack stepped forward, his voice cutting through the stunned silence of the hub. "I'll compete." A ripple of laughter erupted from the alien species around him. A human, competing against the Xeraxians. It was like watching a child challenge a hurricane. But those who knew Jack, those who had seen him work, went suddenly, eerily quiet. Commander Crix's crystalline body seemed to pause, processing this unexpected development. For the first time, something that might have been curiosity flickered in his multifaceted eyes. The galaxy held its breath. The challenge had been issued. The competitor had been named. The real story was about to begin. The Nexus Research Complex loomed like a crystalline mountain, its transparent walls revealing layers of scientific marvels that defied human comprehension. Dr. Aria Chen stood before a holographic display, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces as she analyzed Jack Rodriguez's physiological scans. "You're either the most stubborn human I've ever met," she muttered, "or the most brilliant." Jack said nothing. He was too busy hanging upside down in a gravity manipulation chamber, his body contorting through a series of impossible movements that would have shattered a lesser organism. When he'd first approached Area 3 weeks ago, she'd laughed. Actually laughed. A xenobiological engineer with 3 doctoral degrees and research that had revolutionized interspecies medical understanding. She considered the Xeraxian challenge a mathematical impossibility for humans. "Do you understand what you're up against?" she had asked, pulling up holographic models of Xeraxian physiology. Their bodies were living quantum computers, capable of molecular reconfiguration in microseconds. They could survive absolute zero, redirect kinetic energy like biological lightning rods, and regenerate damage that would kill 100 humans. Jack had simply smiled. "I've seen the impossible become possible more times than you can imagine." Now, watching him train, Aria was beginning to understand why. The gravity chamber shifted. One moment, Jack was experiencing 10 times standard gravity, his muscles compressed like hydraulic pistons. The next, he was in near-zero gravity, moving with a fluidity that defied human anatomy. Custom neural interfaces, developed from Jack's work with wounded veterans, allowed him to map and redirect neural pathways with unprecedented speed. "Your basic problem," Jack had explained during their first serious planning session, "is that you're looking at this as a contest of pure physical capability. The Xeraxians see strength as a mathematical equation. Humans see it as a story." Aria had raised an eyebrow. "A story? Every veteran I've helped rebuild," Jack continued, "didn't just recover. They rewrote their own narrative. Physical limitation is mostly a story we tell ourselves." The training regimen was insane. 12-hour sessions that would have killed a normal human. Specialized neural link equipment developed by Aria allowed Jack to essentially hack his own nervous system. He was learning to process information and physical stress in ways no human had ever achieved. Military records from Jack's Marine days revealed a history of unconventional thinking. Mission reports showed a pattern. Jack consistently found solutions where others saw only obstacles. A rescue operation in the methane storms of Titan. A guerrilla training mission in the low-gravity environments of the lunar resistance. Each experience was a puzzle piece in this impossible preparation. Dr. Chen's research took an unexpected turn. Instead of trying to match the Xeraxian physiology, they would exploit its rigid predictability. The Xeraxians' molecular reconfiguration happened through highly mathematical processes. Humans, with their chaotic neural networks, could potentially introduce variables that would completely destabilize those processes. "It's like trying to solve a complex equation," Aria explained to her research team, "when someone keeps changing the variables mid-calculation." Jack's daughter, Maya, sent encrypted messages of support. A quantum engineer herself, she understood the mathematics of impossibility better than most. "Dad," one message read, "statistical improbability is just a failure of imagination." The final week of preparation was brutal. Custom-designed environmental chambers pushed Jack's body through scenarios that would have killed most species. Rapid temperature shifts, gravitational variances, atmospheric compositions that would liquefy human lung tissue. But Jack adapted. More than that, he learned. Aria watched the data streams, her scientific skepticism slowly transforming into something closer to wonder. Jack wasn't just preparing to compete. He was rewriting the fundamental understanding of human potential. "We're going to need a bigger definition of impossible," she whispered to herself. The Zyraxian trials were 30 solar cycles away, and for the first time, the galaxy's most advanced species was about to meet an opponent they truly didn't understand, a human who refused to accept limitation. A story waiting to be told. The galactic arena pulsed with anticipation. 17 different species filled the massive amphitheater, their bioluminescent bodies creating a living kaleidoscope of alien excitement. Holographic displays stretched infinitely, broadcasting the event to trillions across the known universe. Jack Rodriguez stood at the entrance of the zero-gravity obstacle course, looking impossibly small compared to the other competitors. The Zyraxian athletes towered around him, living sculptures of crystalline muscle and quantum-adaptive biology. Vex, the lead Zyraxian competitor, stood closest. His silicon-based body shifted and realigned with each breath, a living demonstration of evolutionary perfection. "Human." Vex's translator clicked and hummed. "Your presence here is a statistical anomaly. You understand this, yes?" Jack said nothing. He'd heard worse from drill surgeons. The first stage of the Galactic fitness trials was designed to be unnavigable, a three-dimensional maze that constantly reconfigured itself, suspended in a zero-gravity environment with electromagnetic disruptions that would scramble most organic neural networks. Previous competitors had been reduced to floating debris within moments. Dr. Aria Chen's voice crackled through Jack's neural interface. "Remember, it's not about beating their system. It's about understanding it." The starting horn blared, a sound that seemed to ripple through the fabric of space itself. Most competitors moved with predetermined precision. The crystalline corrections flowed like liquid mercury. The gaseous nebulons transformed their entire body structure with each movement. Mechanical species recalculated trajectories 1,000 times per second. Jack moved differently. His first few moments looked like pure chaos. To the alien spectators, it seemed he was failing spectacularly. He bounced off walls at impossible angles. His movements appeared random, uncontrolled. But they weren't. Each seemingly wild movement was a probe, a test, a way of understanding the obstacle course's adaptive mechanisms. Vex watched in contemptuous amusement. The human was making a mockery of the competition. Zyraxian betting pools showed Jack's survival odds dropping to near zero. Halfway through the course, something changed. Jack wasn't just navigating the course anymore. He was playing with it. Where other competitors followed the path of least resistance, Jack created his own. A veteran's instinct kicked in, the same skill that had kept him alive during impossible missions on Titan and the methane storms of the outer colonies. The course began to react to him. Adaptive barriers that had remained static for millennia of competitions suddenly found themselves reconfiguring in response to Jack's unpredictable movements. His marine training, his years of rehabilitation work, his understanding of human adaptability, all of it converged in this moment. Vex's crystalline body actually shifted. Something that might have been confusion flickered across his multifaceted eyes. "Impossible," he muttered. Jack wasn't just competing. He was learning the language of the obstacle itself. Dr. Chen's voice came through the neural link. "Jack, your neural response patterns are off the charts. You're essentially teaching the course how to interact with you." The final segment approached, a section that had broken every previous competitor. A quantum entanglement zone that would typically liquefy any biological organism's neural network. Jack entered it like he was walking into a gentle breeze. When he emerged on the other side, something fundamental had changed. Not just in the course, not just in the competition, but in how the galaxy would forever view human potential. Vex approached as Jack completed the course. For the first time, the lead Zyraxian competitor looked uncertain. "Explain," Vex demanded. Jack just smiled. "Sometimes," he said, "impossibility is just a failure of imagination. The arena went silent. Trillions of viewers across the galaxy watched as the first stage concluded. The human, the species everyone had written off as a joke, had not just survived. He had transformed the very nature of the competition. The real challenge was just beginning. The interspecies observation deck buzzed with a tension that transcended biological boundaries. Representatives from 17 different galactic civilizations leaned forward, their collective breath held in a moment of collective anticipation. Jack Rodriguez sat alone in the preparation chamber, a holographic display of the next challenge flickering before him. Dr. Aria Chen's voice resonated through his neural interface, calm and precise. "This is where it gets interesting," she said. The second stage of the Galactic fitness trials was less a physical challenge and more a psychological gauntlet, designed to break the mental resilience of any competitor. The course combined extreme environmental manipulation with cognitive dissonance generators that had reduced previous contestants to quivering, non-functional masses. Commander Crix watched from the primary observation platform, his crystalline body refracting the ambient light like a living prism of calculation and contempt. "The human will break," he muttered to his senior scientific advisor. "All biological systems have a breaking point." But Jack Rodriguez had learned something profound during his years of rehabilitation work. The human mind was not a fixed system. It was an adaptive network, capable of rewriting its own parameters. The challenge began. Gravitational fields twisted and warped. Temperature fluctuated between absolute zero and plasma-level heat in microseconds. Sensory inputs became a nightmare of conflicting information, visual spectrums that shouldn't exist, sound frequencies that defied mathematical possibility, tactile sensations that contradicted every known law of physics. Most competitors lasted seconds. Jack closed his eyes. This was familiar territory, not the physical environment, but the psychological warfare. He thought of Jimmy Parker, the veteran who'd lost both legs and learned to walk again, of Sarah Chen, who rebuilt her body after an industrial accident that should have killed her, of every patient who had looked impossibility in the eye and laughed. "Adaptation is a story," Jack whispered, a mantra from his rehabilitation work. The psychological warfare intensified. Holographic projections designed to trigger deep-seated neurological panic attacks materialized around him. Memories weaponized into sensory hallucinations. Fear transformed into a tangible environment. Dr. Chen watched the neural interface data with growing excitement. "He's not just resisting," she told her research team. "He's analyzing. He's learning the language of the challenge itself." Jack's approach was revolutionary. Where other competitors tried to resist the psychological manipulation, he was essentially hacking it. Each moment of sensory assault became a data point, each impossible scenario, a puzzle to be solved. Vex, the lead Zyraxian competitor, watched in growing confusion. The human wasn't fighting the challenge. He was conversing with it. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. The other competitors had long since been removed, their neural networks completely compromised. Jack remained. Not just remained, he was changing. His neural pathways were literally rewiring themselves in real time, creating new cognitive connections that shouldn't be possible according to every known biological model. "This is impossible," one of the Zyraxian scientists muttered. Commander Crix said nothing. For the first time, something that might have been respect flickered in his multifaceted eyes. When Jack finally opened his eyes, the entire observation deck went silent. He wasn't just a survivor. He was a living demonstration of human potential. Dr. Chen's voice came through the neural link, a mix of scientific excitement and pure wonder. "Jack, do you understand what just happened? Your neural network just created cognitive pathways that don't exist in any known biological model." Jack's response was simple: "Just doing my job." The psychological stage of the Galactic fitness trials had a new definition of possibility, and it was wearing a Marine Corps tattoo and a slightly tired smile. The galaxy watched, and began to understand that everything they knew about biological potential might be wrong. The Galactic arena transformed for the third stage of the trials. A massive, shape-shifting environment materialized, a living ecosystem of challenge that defied conventional understanding of physical space. Holographic displays tracked each competitor's biometric data, streaming live to trillions of viewers across the known universe. Dr. Aria Chen stood in the observation deck, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that struggled to process the data streaming from Jack Rodriguez's neural network. "This shouldn't be possible," she muttered, a phrase that was becoming her mantra. Jack's daughter Maya sat beside her, a quantum engineer whose understanding of impossible went far deeper than most. "Dad's always been good at rewriting the rules," she said with a knowing smile. The challenge before them was a multi-layered test of adaptive capability. Competitors would navigate an environment that constantly reconfigured itself, changing gravity, atmospheric composition, temperature, and physical constraints in microseconds. Previous contestants had been reduced to molecular disassembly within moments. Vex, the lead Zyraxian competitor, watched with a mixture of contempt and growing uncertainty. His crystalline body shifted, preparing for a challenge that had broken every previous competitor. Jack Rodriguez approached the starting point with a calm that confused the observers. Where others saw an impossible challenge, he saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. The first phase hit like a quantum tsunami. Gravity fluctuated between 0 and 20 times standard planetary norm. Atmospheric composition changed from oxygen-rich to methane-based to pure plasma. Temperature ranges spanned from absolute zero to solar core heat in milliseconds. Most competitors lasted seconds. Jack moved differently. His years of rehabilitation work had taught him something fundamental about physical adaptation. Limitation was mostly a story we told ourselves. Each change in the environment became not an obstacle, but a source of information. Dr. Chen's research had prepared him in ways no one could have predicted. Custom neural interfaces, developed from her work with adaptive biological systems, allowed Jack to process environmental changes at a rate that defied conventional understanding. "He's not just adapting," Chen told the observation team. "He's learning the language of the challenge itself." Midway through the trial, something extraordinary happened. The environment began to react to Jack, rather than Jack reacting to the environment. Quantum sensors detected something impossible. Jack's neural pathways were creating adaptive responses faster than the challenge could generate new obstacles. Where other competitors saw a test, he saw a conversation. Vex's crystalline body actually trembled. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his multifaceted eyes. Maya leaned close to Dr. Chen. "My father always said that impossibility is just a failure of imagination." The final segment approached. A quantum entanglement zone that had liquefied every previous competitor's biological systems. Neural networks would typically collapse under the sheer computational complexity of the environment. Jack entered it like he was walking into a gentle breeze. When he emerged, something fundamental had changed. Not just in the competition, not just in how aliens viewed human potential, but in the very understanding of biological adaptation. Holographic displays struggled to process the data. Jack's performance defied every known mathematical model of biological capability. He hadn't just survived. He had transformed the very nature of the challenge. Vex approached as Jack completed the stage. For the first time, the lead Zyraxian competitor looked genuinely confused. "Explain," Vex demanded. Jack's response was simple. "Sometimes," he said, "the best way to win is to change the game." The arena went silent. Trillions of viewers across the galaxy watched as the third stage concluded. The human, the species everyone had written off as a joke, had not just survived. He had redefined the very concept of adaptation. The real challenge was just beginning. And humanity was just getting started. The final stage of the Galactic fitness trials loomed like a nightmare engineered by quantum gods. A massive holographic display illuminated the arena, revealing a challenge that had been kept secret until this moment. 17 different gravitational fields intersected simultaneously. Electromagnetic disruptions created living geometries that would tear apart any known biological construct. Temperature gradients ranged from absolute zero to plasma states, shifting faster than thought could process. Commander Crick stepped forward, his crystalline body refracting light in patterns that suggested barely contained excitement. "This," he announced to the trillion-strong galactic audience, "is the ultimate test of biological adaptation." Jack Rodriguez stood at the entrance, seemingly small and fragile compared to the alien competitors. Dr. Area Chen's voice crackled through his neural interface, a lifeline of scientific precision. "Remember," she said, "this isn't about strength. This is about conversation." The challenge began with a quantum pulse that would have obliterated most organic systems instantly. Jack took a deep breath. His mind drifted to the veterans he'd rehabilitated. Jimmy Parker, who rebuilt his life after losing both legs. Sarah Chen, who reconstructed her body after an industrial accident that should have killed her. Every patient who had looked impossibility in the eye and refused to blink. The first wave hit like a molecular tsunami. Gravitational fields twisted. Electromagnetic frequencies created living geometries that defied mathematical understanding. Temperature became a weapon, shifting between states that would vaporize most biological matter in microseconds. Most competitors lasted milliseconds. Jack moved differently. Where others saw destruction, he saw information. Each shift in the environment became a language to be understood, a puzzle to be solved. His neural interfaces, developed through years of rehabilitation work and Dr. Chen's groundbreaking research, transformed the impossible into a conversation. Vex, the lead Zyraxian competitor, watched in growing confusion. The human wasn't fighting the challenge. He was dancing with it. Midway through the trial, something extraordinary happened. The challenge itself began to react to Jack. Quantum sensors detected an impossible phenomenon. Jack's neural pathways were creating adaptive responses faster than the test could generate new obstacles. Where other competitors sought a test of destruction, he saw a complex dialogue of physical possibility. Maya, watching from the observation deck, leaned toward Dr. Chen. "Dad always said that limits are just stories we tell ourselves." The final segment approached. A quantum entanglement zone that had reduced previous competitors to atomic dust. Neural networks would typically collapse under the computational complexity of the environment. Jack entered it like he was stepping through a doorway. When he emerged, the entire arena went silent. He hadn't just survived. He had transformed the very nature of the challenge. Holographic displays struggled to process the data. Jack's performance obliterated every known mathematical model of biological capability. He hadn't just completed the challenge. He had rewritten its fundamental parameters. Vex approached, his crystalline body actually trembling with something that might have been respect. "Explain," the Zyraxian demanded. Jack's response was simple. "Adaptation isn't about surviving," he said. "It's about having a conversation with the impossible." The arena erupted. Trillions of viewers across the galaxy watched as the final stage concluded. The human, the species everyone had written off as a statistical improbability, had not just survived. He had redefined the very concept of biological potential. Commander Crick stood motionless, his multifaceted eyes reflecting something that might have been wonder. Dr. Area Chen's hands flew across quantum interfaces, her scientific excitement barely contained. "This changes everything," she whispered. Jack Rodriguez had done more than compete in a galactic trial. He had started a conversation that would reshape how the universe understood life itself. The aftermath of Jack Rodriguez's performance rippled through the galactic arena like a quantum shockwave. Official results were impossible to calculate. Jack hadn't just completed the challenges. He had fundamentally rewritten the parameters of biological testing. Scientific delegations from 17 different species huddled in emergency conferences, their computational models collapsing under the weight of what they had witnessed. Commander Crick stood before the Galactic Confederation Council, his crystalline body refracting light in patterns that suggested internal turmoil. The holographic displays behind him showed endless streams of data, Jack's performance reduced to a series of impossible mathematical anomalies. "This human," Crix began, his translator crackling with barely contained emotion, "has challenged everything we understand about biological adaptation." Dr. Aria Chen sat beside Jack in the preparation chamber. Her hands moved across quantum interfaces, parsing through layers of data that defied conventional understanding. "You realize," she said, "what you've done is impossible." Jack's response was a simple smile. Impossible is just a word people use to feel better about their limitations. The final confrontation was about to begin. Unlike previous stages, this was a direct challenge. Jack would face the top competitors from each species in a final, no-holds-barred physical trial. The arena had been redesigned, a living environment that would push every biological system to its absolute limit. Vex, the lead Zyraxian competitor, approached with something that might have been respect. His crystalline body shifted, reconfiguring in ways that suggested internal conflict. "You have changed the equation," Vex stated. It wasn't a challenge. It was an acknowledgement. The arena transformed. Gravitational fields became fluid. Electromagnetic spectrums twisted into living geometries. Temperature became a weapon, pressure a variable to be manipulated. This was beyond a physical challenge. This was a fundamental test of biological potential. Competitors from 17 different species took their positions. The Corexian crystal beings, the gaseous nebulans, mechanical species with computational cores that could process information faster than thought. And in the center, Jack Rodriguez. His daughter Maya watched from the observation deck, her quantum engineering background giving her a unique perspective. "Dad always said," she whispered to Dr. Chen, "that the universe is just a conversation waiting to be understood." The challenge began. Where other competitors moved with predetermined precision, Jack became something else entirely. He wasn't fighting the environment. He was negotiating with it. Each movement was a complex dialogue of physical potential. The Corexian crystal beings shattered their own molecular structures, reforming in milliseconds. Jack adapted. The nebulons transformed their entire biological composition. Jack responded. Mechanical species recalculated trajectories 1,000 times per second. Jack intercepted their logic. Something extraordinary happened. The arena itself began to react to Jack. Gravitational fields shifted in response to his movements. Electromagnetic spectrums bent around his biological signature. It was as if the very fabric of the physical challenge was engaging in a complex dance with human potential. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. Other competitors fell. Molecular structures collapsed. Computational cores overloaded. Neural networks disintegrated. Jack remained. Not just remained, he was evolving. Dr. Chen's voice came through his neural interface, a mix of scientific excitement and pure wonder. "Jack, you're rewriting biological understanding in real time. Your neural network is creating pathways that don't exist in any known model." The final moments approached. Vex, the last competitor standing, faced Jack in a confrontation that would define a new understanding of life itself. "Explain," Vex demanded. Jack's response was simple. "We're not just surviving," he said. "We're having a conversation with the universe." The arena went silent. Trillions of viewers across the galaxy watched as Jack Rodriguez did more than win a competition. He rewrote the fundamental understanding of biological potential. Humanity was no longer just another species. We were a conversation waiting to happen. The aftermath of the galactic fitness trials would be remembered as a turning point in interspecies relations. Jack Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Confederation Council, surrounded by scientific delegations from 17 different species. The massive chamber, a marvel of architectural engineering that could simultaneously accommodate beings from vacuum-dwelling gaseous organisms to crystalline life forms, was eerily silent. Commander Crix, his crystalline body now showing subtle fracture lines that spoke of profound internal recalibration, stepped forward. The universal translator captured the complexity of his speech, part scientific report, part philosophical revelation. Humanity, Crix began, has fundamentally altered our understanding of biological potential. Dr. Aria Chen sat nearby, her quantum interfaces still processing the unprecedented data from Jack's performance. Holographic displays danced around her, revealing neural pathway configurations that defied every known biological model. Jack's daughter, Maya, watched from the observation deck, a quantum engineer who understood that impossible was just an unfinished equation. The council chambers were a testament to galactic diversity. Beings of pure energy stood alongside silicon-based life forms. Gaseous entities swirled in containment fields. Mechanical intelligences pulsed with computational complexity. And at the center of it all, a human who had rewritten the rules. The trials were never just about physical capability, Jack explained, his voice calm and measured. They were about understanding, about conversation. Scientific delegations from across the galaxy had spent weeks analyzing his performance. Quantum engineers, xenobiologists, neural network specialists, all had reached the same impossible conclusion. Jack Rodriguez hadn't just competed. He had demonstrated a form of adaptive intelligence that transcended biological categorization. The Zaraxian research teams had discovered something extraordinary. Jack's neural interfaces, developed through years of rehabilitation work, allowed him to process environmental challenges in ways that defied conventional understanding. Where other species saw obstacles, he saw a complex dialogue of potential. Every veteran I've worked with, Jack continued, taught me that limitation is mostly a story we tell ourselves. Adaptation isn't about surviving. It's about having a conversation with the impossible. Vex, who had been Jack's primary competitor, now stood as a kind of scientific witness. His crystalline body had been fundamentally altered by the experience, literal cracks of understanding spreading through his molecular structure. The implications were profound. Galactic research institutions began reprioritizing their understanding of biological potential. Human rehabilitation techniques, once considered a narrow medical specialty, now became a subject of intense study. How could a species transform limitation into potential so consistently? Dr. Chen's research team had already begun developing new adaptive neural interfaces based on Jack's performance. Rehabilitation centers across multiple star systems began incorporating these techniques, offering hope to species that had previously been limited by their biological constraints. Maya approached her father, her quantum engineering background giving her a unique perspective. "You didn't just win a competition," she said. "You started a conversation that will change how the universe understands life itself." Jack smiled. "We're just getting started." The Galactic Confederation Council issued a formal recognition, a document that would be translated into millions of languages and communication systems. It wasn't just an acknowledgement of Jack's performance. It was a fundamental reframing of what it meant to be a living, adaptive system. Trillions of beings across the galaxy watched as humanity transitioned from a species often overlooked to one that demanded attention, not through military might, not through technological superiority, but through an unprecedented ability to adapt, to learn, to transform. Commander Crix made a final statement that would be quoted for generations. "Humanity does not conform to the universe conforms to humanity's potential." Jack Rodriguez stood at the center of it all, a rehabilitation specialist, a veteran, a father. Just another human who refused to accept the word impossible. The real journey was just beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same.